Hypestrategy, the first chapter is called Make War Not Love. And I often tell people, if you don't learn any other chapter in the book, learn that, especially if you're running a brand. If it's not just about you personally, if it's a company with a brand, that's really effective. And in fact, when I work with clients, we basically work with idea-driven businesses, tech startups, and high-level consultants to help them generate this kind of attention and emotion around their own stuff so that they can either get a high valuation or more clients or customers or whatever. And I always start with this strategy. And what I say to them is, think of a point of view in your industry that is very, very common, that's almost gospel, that you completely disagree with, that you would go on a soapbox to disagree with. And at the same time, think about a point of view in your industry that you are 100% confident is the case and that other people don't tend to agree with. And so I'll give you two brand examples, if that's okay, of how this works. So Basecamp is a CRM system. So not a very exciting product. It's basically how you track your workflows, like a project management kind of tool. And they had to compete with Salesforce, which is really tough to do because Salesforce invented a new industry. They invented cloud-based CRMs and project management tools. So what they did instead, and they're a much smaller company, is they went out into the world and picked a fight with the idea that you can throw people and hours at business problems. So the owner of the company, the founder, wrote a book called Rework that says very little about his product, but it basically says, fire your workaholics. If someone is a workaholic, that means they're not efficient enough. Simplicity is very important. If you have a product that has 20 features, pare it down to 5. And if that doesn't help, if there are certain people that doesn't appeal to, great, turn them away. And so it was this sort of anti-hustle culture manifesto. Why was that good for them? Because their product is notable for being extremely simple. It only does a few things. So if a client says to them, add this functionality, they'll say, no, go to Salesforce. But simplicity in a project management tool is really useful because some of these tools are so complex that it's easier to do it on pad and paper. So they basically picked a fight with the dominant narrative in the business world, and as a result was able to build a very strong brand around Basecamp, where Salesforce people use because it's the best tool. People use Basecamp. They wear T-shirts with Basecamp. People have like a die-hard attachment to Basecamp. So that's one example. And then another example is everyone's favorite brand, which is Apple in the Steve Jobs era. If you think about how they relaunched their brand, it was largely through those commercials with Mac versus PC, where they had Justin Long as the Mac and John Hodgman as the PC. And one was nerdy, business-like, had a big gut hanging over his shirt with a tie. And then the other guy was hip and cool. And the implication was you can either choose to be an artsy, cool, hip guy, or you can be a standard cubicle, do things the regular way guy. And one was Apple and one was PC. And in reality, Apple is every bit as much of a behemoth corporation as Dell, if not more so. But people don't perceive them that way.
Brilliant examples. Michael, although, in branding, the whole attempt is take up an idea, stand for an idea, for a philosophy. Still, it takes a lot to consistently go for an idea and try and own it and protect it and not let it erode, from others taking bites from it. But then along with this, you say, make war, not love. And that is so powerful. I want to know, what is it about us human beings that it sticks better in the mind when somebody says, I hate this, or I don't stand for this, rather than I stand for this?
So it's funny you should ask, because I was very curious about the same thing. So I did some pretty in-depth research on this topic for the book, and because I wanted to serve my clients in the right way, because I didn't want to just go on gut, I mean, just because I thought that this was true and my experience showed me that it was true, I didn't want to, I could have been wrong. It could have been anecdotal evidence, right? So I did a bunch of research, and it turns out there was an anthropologist named Curtis Marion who found this alcove on the coast of South Africa, which essentially, for various reasons that would take a long time to discuss here, people are pretty certain that that's where every person on Earth today is descended from the people who lived in this alcove. So there was this near extinction event on the savannah in Africa from a climate change event, and almost every Homo sapiens died, except for a small group. So we almost went extinct, 100,000 years ago or what have you. And this small group of Homo sapiens, Africans, went to this area on the coast, very small group. And what happened was they found a place where there was a lot of shellfish. They found the remains of these shells, fossilized remains. And it was much easier than hunting and gathering. So, there were just all these shellfish. You could just dip your hand into the pool and get them. Very high calorie for low investment. So the only thing keeping people from getting this shellfish was other people, right? Now, these people were all genetically similar, but the hypothesis, and it's backed by a lot of evidence, is that these people probably split into different tribes, right? Because there was only so much shellfish. And what made them able, the people who were the best at getting this food were able to cooperate with people that they perceived to be like them and drive out the people they perceived not to be like them. And perceived is an extremely important part, because they were all genetically the same, but they came up obviously with these designations. They formed groups. So they would learn to hate the people outside of them. So people who had that genetic hatred for others and the genetic propensity to cooperate with people like them are our ancestors, right? Because if you put a bunch of monkeys on an airplane, a bunch of chimpanzees who we're very closely related to, and we told them, everybody sit in rows and don't make any noise for 3 hours, they would tear holes in the side of the plane. Only humans are able to do that. So we can be very, very, very cooperative, but we're also able to, there's a group that parts their hair this way instead of this way, right? I mean, skin color is a completely arbitrary designation. Some people have red hair. The Romans used to hate people with red hair. They thought they were Germanic barbarians, right? Now we don't even care about that, especially in the United States, black, red. So all of this to say, this propensity of human beings causes a lot of history's worst episodes to happen, right? I mean, racism, genocide, this and that. But you can channel it positively. You can channel it. You can hate a terrible message. You can hate a hateful ideology. You can hate the way things are. You can, right? But believing that people are going to be as passionate about what they're for, I think that's where a lot of branding people go wrong. They sit there and they say, oh, we came up with this really cool logo for our syrup, and it's really cute looking and great, and it's hip. And so we're going to get people to be for it. And then they get confused about why people don't really care as much as they'd like about their logo. But someone like Steve Jobs understood that if you can get people to think of themselves as not being a starchy cubicle person, that goes a lot farther, right?